What's up guys, welcome to another Bram Talks on YouTube. Today I have a special guest, Dan Mumford. We are live at a new festival, Bum Festival in Kortrijk, where he will be participating in a creative jam later. Hi Dan, how are you? Can you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Well, I'm Dan Mumford. I work and live in London as a freelance illustrator, mainly releasing screen prints and things like that. I work a lot within the music and film industry, pop culture, that sort of thing.
So where did it start? Did you study anything art related, or is it even before that you did on your own?
I studied, I went to Brighton, the university for illustration. What else did I do? I did a foundation course in London as well before that. So I have a background in design and illustration and stuff. But the last 10 years or so has just been me freelance, really.
So yeah, you're doing freelance jobs now.
Yeah.
A lot of viewers are students are thinking about going to freelance. What made you go into freelance and not work for a client, for an agency, for instance?
Well, it kind of happened by accident, really. I left university and moved to London straight away. I had a few jobs at the time working within music, doing like packaging and illustrations for bands, t-shirts, things like that. And luckily that allowed me to start straight away working freelance. And after about 6 months, maybe a year, I realized that I've done it for a year. I've managed to survive. Rent was hard a lot of the time. It was very expensive living in London, but it worked okay. And it's one of those things where I still, as a freelancer, you still think, maybe next month I'm not going to have any work or something. But I'm starting to realise that, I guess, after 10 years it's going okay.
I think you work in a co-working space. Does that help you a lot? Is that something you can recommend to beginners? Like, hey, find a spot where you can collaborate with different people, or at least find an environment that stimulates you to work more focused?
Absolutely. Yeah. I worked at home for maybe 1 year or something, and then I just went a bit crazy, because it's the thing where my housemates would go to work. They work in like agencies, and go to work in the morning, come home, and I've not left the house. You're just there, sort of going a bit, just sort of losing your mind a bit. I moved into a studio after a year or maybe 1 or 2 years ago with like 20 people, and that's amazing because most of them are freelancers. There's a couple of small companies there as well. But it's all these different disciplines, from architecture to typography, graphic design, some web stuff as well. And now it just sort of means there's all these different disciplines around me. If you have a problem or you need to talk to someone about stuff, there's always someone there. And we've all got our own spaces, like with all our stuff around us. It's just a really nice environment to work in.
We know you as an illustrator. Have you ever been tempted to do something different?
I think to an extent. Like there will be, so obviously I do illustration and I mainly work in screen print. Nearly always the same size as well. You've got the standard 18 by 24 inch screen print. That is maybe 60% of what I do all the time. It's the same thing. But the content still excites me. Every time it's a different image or whatever. So I don't really go too far out of that. It's more when I get to, I might be doing a couple of book cover designs coming up, and for me that's something I don't ever do. And then there's a few book cover designers in the studio, so I can talk to them about that stuff. And I think it's making small steps like that, as opposed to suddenly going, I'm going to design a website or something, because also I respect that I don't necessarily understand the design aspect of all of that stuff, so I think I quite like working with other people to do those things. But at the same time, it's always nice to try new things. Yeah.
when you talked about, I don't want to go to different directions, the book cover is already like another big step, and I feel like it's the same. I'm doing portraits and it's always like little difference, but nobody really sees it, but just you notice, and it's what you drive you and what grows you and something like that. So
yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I think it's all about the changes that you make
within the canvas for you, exactly, and you grow within there, and people forget that.
Yeah, and most of the time people won't notice or won't see anything. Exactly. But then actually, if you look at like my work now and then look at it 4 years ago, a lot of people will be like, well, it looks the same. But then you look a bit closer and it's like, actually, they're kind of very different in certain aspects, you know. Or there might just be a bit more detailed or something like that, because, you know, as an artist, you're generally learning from mistakes every single time you work on something. It's sort of an evolving process.
What if you have a creative block? Do you have some tips and tricks that you immediately can share with the viewers?
Generally, I just don't work.
Oh, okay, cool.
Which I think is obviously sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you have to. But for me, if it's not there and I can't come up with any ideas, then put it to the side. Do something completely different. For me, I draw a lot of inspiration from movies, music, comic books, because they're all these sort of the creative mediums that are not directly related to what I do. So I can pull inspiration from those worlds. You know, be it just, music, for example, can just get emotions going in your head that might suddenly spark an idea or a visual or something. Most of my work starts out, as I'm sure most people, in my head. Like I'll get a brief and I will kind of be able to come up with a composition before I've even started drawing. And I think by just sort of getting away from the studio and getting away from your paper or your computer, you can be always thinking about stuff, but doing other things that will, just get you more excited about it. So yeah, just leave the studio, leave wherever you're working and go do something else for a bit.
In Belgium at the moment there is this hot topic about working for free, if you should do it or not. Earlier today Adobe introduced you as an upcoming superstar illustrator together with Musketon, Bertries. What is a superstar doing? Do you work for free?
It's a really tough one. I haven't worked for free in the past. I've worked for very, very little amount of money. And I kind of think, generally you should be compensated, even if it's just very minimal, or even if it's just for travel, something like that. I don't think, unless the job itself is like the biggest of clients, and it's really, really going to definitely make those connections for you, I think you should be compensated. But then you have to be smart about things. Like sometimes a job will come along and they say, we can't really pay you anything, but this could help you meet a lot of really important people. And yeah, if that comes along, then you probably should do it.
And then it comes probably down to what I try to do is like follow my heart. It's like, how do I feel about it, and make sure that
that's the thing.
In the end, it's about you putting your time in it.
Yeah.
Even I don't believe that money is the only way to get paid. As you say, like compensation, there are different ways to get paid. So
I think that's the other thing. If someone's saying, can you do this work for me? We can't pay you. And it's going to take, and maybe this is a great opportunity, but it's going to take up like weeks of your time and ruin you.
Yeah.
That's not going to make you happy necessarily. I think you have to weigh up the pros and cons of those sort of things. But you should get paid for your time. I think that's fair.
Well, this was Dan. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions for Dan, feel free to let me know. Please thumbs up for the video. Check out his work, and goodbye.